The left is really exercised over Brett Kavanaugh because they recognize that the right, in attempting to reconstrain the judiciary to its traditional role of interpreting the Constitution rather than imposing political priorities, that this threatens the left's agenda. The left believes that its agenda can only be spread not through public legislation, not through the popularity of its agenda, but just by a bunch of people who are really, really wise and liberal and who can impose their views from above. And so the idea of a Brett Kavanaugh who's going to come in and help create a new majority on the court that's actually going to stick to the judiciary's job, this scares the living hell, it scares the living daylights out of Democrats. So let's begin with NARAL, Pro-Choice America. So NARAL is, of course, an abortion rights group. And here is what they tweeted out. They tweeted out, "Back off, Brett," and with the clappy hands. First of all, you who use the clappy hands emoji, stop it. You're making yourself look like a douche. It's stupid. Okay, the clappy hands emojis are dumb unless you're using them ironically. It's one of those things like using the word woke. If you use the word woke ironically, then I'm okay with you using the word woke. If you use the word woke without any sense of irony about your own douchiness, then I have nothing to say to you. And the same thing is true about the clappy hands emoji. So it's like, back off, Brett. Okay, you're an idiot. Okay, here's what NARAL actually tweeted. "We'll be damned, all caps, if we're going to let 5 men, including some frat boy named Brett, strip us of our hard-won bodily autonomy and reproductive rights." First of all, it's not hard-won bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. That's the entire point. You couldn't pass legislation. It was handed to you on a platter by the Supreme Court. I'd say it wasn't hard-won bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. First of all, even if you think that killing a baby in your womb is bodily autonomy, you didn't win anything near all Pro-Choice America. You won nothing. It was the Supreme Court that handed you stuff on a silver platter because the American people don't agree with your agenda. Polls show that even pro-choice Americans are very much in favor of restrictions on second and third trimester abortions, for example. My favorite part of this tweet, though, is where they suggest that Brett Kavanaugh is some frat boy named Brett. Have you, seen Brett Kavanaugh? Have you, looked at Brett Kavanaugh? You think he's going and, he's chugging beer with the bros in the aftermath of his D.C. Circuit court cases? That's when he goes and plays beer pong after making his decisions? And he's butt chugging things? That's Brett Kavanaugh? Really? I'm going to go no on that. Frat boy named Brett. Brett Kavanaugh has been on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for 12 years. Before that, he was involved in virtually every level of federal litigation. Brett Kavanaugh is about the nerdiest guy you will ever find. He is a hardcore Catholic who sends his daughters to Catholic school, coaches his daughter's basketball team, and volunteers at the soup kitchen. Frat boy named Brett. But we're the sexists. We're the sexists. All men who don't believe the same things that NARAL believes. They're frat boys. I love that the left has been relegated to mocking Brett Kavanaugh's first name. Really, this is a thing now. They've got nothing, so they're now relegated to mocking Brett Kavanaugh's first name. So Stephen Colbert, he has nothing on Kavanaugh. He's got nothing to say. So here is what he says about Kavanaugh. We can't have a guy in the Supreme Court named Brett. What's next? You're going to have a guy in the Supreme Court named Paisley? What's going to happen? So here's Stephen Colbert making the very solid case that you should never have someone on the Supreme Court named Brett because something.
I don't know much about Kavanaugh, but I'm skeptical because his name is Brett. That sounds less like a Supreme Court justice and more like a waiter at Ruby Tuesdays. Hey, everybody, I'm Brett. I'll be your Supreme Court justice tonight. Before you sit down, let me just clear away these rights for you.
What? That's your case? That's a real strong case right there, that his name is Brett. What are we, in third grade? Brett can't be a Supreme Court justice. His name is Brett. Also, there have been a fair number of actual prominent Bretts in American public life, including, of course, Brett Favre, who was a very manly man and not the Brett at Ruby Tuesdays. But in any case, Stephen Colbert, if I will say Stephen Colbert is right. My understanding is that Stephen Colbert actually changed the pronunciation of his name in college. This is the rumor that was going on, is that Stephen Colbert is actually pronounced Stephen Colbert. And he actually changed it to Colbert because it sounds more sophisticated. In any case, Brett sounds like a manager at Ruby Tuesdays, which apparently is a bad thing. Apparently it's terrible to work at Ruby Tuesdays. It means that you're unqualified for anything. So menial laborers, you never aspire to go to law school. Nobody who has ever worked at Ruby Tuesdays ever went on to go be a lawyer. No one. They all stayed there forever. And they wore flair. That's what they did. But Stephen Colbert going after Brett Kavanaugh's name. Stephen Colbert, that's a name that sounds to me like a failed comedian. If I just had to pull it out of the air, I would just say, Stephen Colbert sounds like a dude who can't make a good joke. That's what I would probably say about it. My favorite rip on Kavanaugh, however, goes to Joy Behar. So Joy Behar, who legitimately has the IQ of a kumquat. The woman is just inane. She says this about Brett Kavanaugh. She says that Brett Kavanaugh is basically Judge Jeanine Pirro. Yeah. Okay.
It is not Judge Jeanine Pirro, which I at one point in time thought was actually a possibility of becoming a Supreme Court justice. So
it could have been worse.
For you, it could have been much worse.
Well, he might be just acquired a version of Judge Jeanine.
No,
she's just out there.
He was very.
He's a more what? He's a better version of Judge Jeanine. He's a quieter version of Judge Jeanine. Yeah, if you're a nutcase, if you were dropped on your head as a baby, if you fell off the stupid tree and you hit every branch on the way down, he's just like Judge Jeanine, except for nothing, except for, his wisely considered and brilliant defenses that run like 50 pages at a time. Yeah, listen, I know Judge Jeanine. I like Judge Jeanine. But Judge Jeanine gives speeches where at the end of her speeches, she literally says, I'm right. How do you know? Because I'm the judge. I've literally seen her give speeches like that because she's a television performer. That's what she does. Okay, I've never seen a Judge Kavanaugh decision where at the end he says, and I'm right. How do you know? Because I'm the D.C. Circuit judge. No. Okay, that was not the stupidest take of the day. Legitimately, the stupidest take of the day, month, year, decade, century, millennia. I was always under the impression that Chris Cuomo was the stupider of the Cuomo brothers. But apparently, Andrew has now surpassed him. When God made Andrew Cuomo, he just forgot to take the brains off the shelf. I mean, he just did not implant one because this is incredible. Andrew Cuomo comes out and he says, listen, if Brett Kavanaugh and the Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue them. He seriously said this. Hey, here's Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, who wants to run for president. But frankly, I don't know how he can even have bipedal locomotion given his lack of brain power. Here is Andrew Cuomo.
We now need to codify Roe v. Wade, which will actually increase the protections in New York. God forbid they do what they intend to do, which is overturn Roe v. Wade. I want to get it done before the Supreme Court does that because I don't want any gap in a woman's right to protection, and we have a better legal case when the Supreme Court acts, because I will sue when the Supreme Court acts.
And I love all the idiots there. I'll sue, yeah, woo! Okay, so just to make clear, for those who don't know, like, basic law, okay, like basic law, like you're a complete moron who hit your head on a tree stump when you were 3. Okay, you can't sue the Supreme Court, you idiot. Okay, so how would that work exactly? The Supreme Court rules to overturn Roe v. Wade, and then Andrew Cuomo goes, hey guys, they overturned Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court. I'm going to sue them in court. And then it goes to court, and then the court rules against him. He says, I'm going to appeal it to the higher court. And then it goes to the appellate court. And then he says, I'm going to appeal it to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, who I'm suing for the decision. So the Supreme Court, according to Andrew Cuomo, is going to rule against the Supreme Court on the Supreme Court's ability to overrule Roe v. Wade because Andrew Cuomo sued the Supreme Court in the Supreme Court. Yes, this is one of your front runners for 2020, Democrats.